Hey everyone, Brendan Snyder here. How are you? Thanks so much for joining me and welcome to another episode of New Music Finds, where I like to collect together all the different things that I've gotten in the past week, present it to you, give you a little bit of rundown on it, talk about why I picked it up, why it's going in the collection, maybe inspire you guys to pick up some of this stuff too, or at least dig back into your collection and pull out some of those cool obscure things that you still got sitting there. So I've got 12 things here to go through with you. I'll do that in just a bit. But before we start, if you're new to my channel and haven't already hit the subscribe button, please do. Also leave a comment, hit like. All those things do help support my channel. I'd greatly appreciate it. And of course, as an added bonus, if you turn on notifications, you're going to stay up to date on everything going on in the world of music, at least on this channel here, where we're talking about the new releases and things that I picked up over this past week. And I got some pretty cool ones. We're going to start off with new releases themselves, but actually I didn't pick up anything that came out this past Friday. It was two releases that came out the week prior, but they took a little bit longer to get to me when I ordered them, so they only just came in. And first one up is one that I did a full review on, Ratt Rarities. Something I wasn't entirely sure that I was going to be picking up because I didn't quite know the quality of it. And I thought, well, I'll stream it when it comes out. I'll check it out that way and decide how much I want it or don't want it. I'm a huge Ratt fan, so my initial thought was, gotta get it. And then as time went on, I said, you know what? Maybe it's crap. I'm not going to pick it up. Unfortunately, it's not available to stream. And wasn't that much. I think it was like 12 bucks or something. And I thought, you know what? I'm a huge fan. I'm just going to go ahead and get it and check it out. And it is what it is. Well, surprisingly, I actually liked it a whole lot, way more than I thought I was going to like it, which led to me doing the review. I wasn't even going to do a review on it, but this thing just put such a big smile on my face that I thought, I got to talk to you guys about it. And so I will leave a link to that review if you want to check the whole thing out. But bottom line is, some of the stuff is actually really good quality. Other stuff, not so much on here, but it all has the energy, the love, the excitement, which was the whole Ratt and roll thing. So I'm okay with it. I would have sequenced it a little bit differently. I would have taken a couple of those tracks that are a little lesser quality and maybe moved them to the end and then pulled some of the other ones that are really kind of pristine quality and moved them up. But all in all, it's a real fun listen. My only other complaint on this is that one, there's only 9 tracks. I could use a lot more. And 2, 4 of them being studio and the other 5 being live versions. And actually the live versions are really killer. And some of these only say live 87. One of them does say live in Germany 87. And I seemingly have matched that up to the soundboard recording that came from, which was a Monsters of Rock show in 87. And I found someone selling a really high quality bootleg. At least all the art and everything on it looks really good. So I've ordered that. I'm hoping it's the entire show, and if it is, then the sound quality is going to be great. And I'll actually have the entire thing, not just the few samples that are, or not samples, but I mean few tracks that are on this comp. But all in all, I gotta say, this was a lot better than I was expecting it to be. And as a hardcore Ratt fan, glad to have it in the collection. But, if you're just casual Ratt fan, stick to the greatest hits or the albums and things like that. The next one is another one that I really wasn't anticipating picking up. I went to Sound Exchange. Anthony had it, so I thought, yeah, what the heck, I'm going to go ahead and pick it up. And I thought I was just buying this for the artwork, the original quality of this. I picked up Tommy Bolan Teaser. The album itself came out in 1975, so almost 50 years on for this thing. Tommy Bolan being guitar player that played with Zephyr and then went on to James Gang and Deep Purple and did some solo work too while he was in the band. So I for years have had this Teaser Deluxe, and I thought this was the album itself, just quote a deluxe edition of it, albeit it only had 1 bonus track. And I didn't realize it till after picking this up. I was reading about it and found out that in fact this is all alternate versions and extended versions and stuff like that, not the original album, a lot looser, so demos and stuff like that. Because when I popped this on, I thought, wow, this thing sounds so much better. I like this album. I don't remember liking the album as much. And it's because this is very different. So if you're like me and you only ever had this because that was the only way to get a hold of the album, this, in fact, is the original album. And so I'm actually so glad that I picked it up, and I didn't even know that I was getting something different when I picked it up until after getting home and doing a little homework on it. But the original Tommy Bolan debut solo album Teaser, for which I knew from Motley Crue covering the song Teaser, which is why I wanted it so much. I'm glad to finally have that in the collection and enjoy it for what it is. Now, when I was at Sound Exchange, Anthony's always been raving and going on about this artist. And when I did my What Just Dropped, I even talked about it and said, the whole reason I'm putting this artist in here is because Anthony Coviello loves this person. I'm talking about Kate Clover. And I don't really know anything about this person. And I found out that first album, she didn't even release it on CD. And the second album, very few of these, they're thin cardboard case ones, but was kind of a surprise thing. Oh, okay, she's going to put a CD out for this version. And that kind of it made me a little bit more interested in it, that it's a little harder to come by, but she's putting out a CD for this one. This is called The Apocalypse Dream. And I didn't know what it sounded like, and I just knew Anthony liked it. And Anthony and I cross over on some musical things, but some stuff we're very, very different on. And if I ask Anthony, what does the artist sound like? He just says everybody sounds like rock. He doesn't like genres. He doesn't like labels. I get that. But at the same time, I argue with him all the time because I'm like, explain to me what it is. Make me so that I might be interested in it. And he's just saying it's rock, whatever. Then he goes, I don't know. He goes, they opened up for Social Distortion. And I said, now I'm interested. I love Social Distortion, and any band they're going to take out on the road, I would probably be interested. I said, throw it on, let me hear it. And I was thoroughly impressed. It is definitely punk rock, alternative rock. It is not straight up rock, but it's rock and roll. And I really liked it. And Kate Clover, so obviously female fronted. She has a backing band of guys, and they rock hard, and sounds really great. So it totally turned out to really enjoy that. But because there's so little information out there, and she's an indie artist or underground kind of a thing, and I get that. But quite frankly, not being promoted the right way, because I loved it once I heard it, but until I heard it, not everyone's going to go out and try it. You got to get out and explain the type of music you are, even when you don't like labels. It helps some of us understand stuff and then want to check it out. So I'm recommending you guys, if you like bands like Social Distortion, Bad Religion, and stuff like that, and you like alternative and punk rock and the 90s and the later era type stuff, check out Kate Clover. It's some really good stuff. All right. I'd gotten into revisiting a bunch of REO Speedwagon stuff the past week, and there's just no more stuff to buy, and they haven't made an album in 17 years at this point. 2007, I think, was their last studio album. But I thought about it, and I said, wait a minute, their guitar player, Gary Richrath, put out a solo album, Only the Strong Survive, and I never picked it up back in the day. It was actually very hard to come by, and I think it has since gone back into production. This was 1992, put out on the GNP Crescendo Records label, which is a very small label, and I think why it was so hard to come by. But 1992, not on a major label, just kind of went under the radar. And I've never heard very good things about it. I know I've sampled it over the years and it didn't necessarily move me, but I thought, you know what, I don't care. I'm just going to pick it up. I want to have it, and then I will digest it properly. And it does. It sounds like later era REO Speedwagon, but for all the talk at the time that Gary wanted out of the band because they were doing too many ballads, and it was kind of the same story in Styx. It was just, Dennis DeYoung's taken over, too many ballads. In this case, Kevin Cronin taken over, too many ballads. And he gets out and he basically makes an album that sounds just like their albums with plenty of ballads and everything on it. In fact, not as many hard rockin' songs as I would have imagined. But yet, if you like REO Speedwagon, that's what this stuff sounds like. If you check out the opening track, Tragedy, in and of itself, that sounds like a really great rock and roll song from them. Outlaws moves right into ballad territory, track number 2 on here. And the vocalist itself, while sounding very much of someone out of the 80s, does have a close resemblance to Kevin Cronin, REO Speedwagon's most famous vocalist. And so again, all in all, it just sounds like another sort of offshoot or side project REO Speedwagon thing. But if you're like me and you're looking for something, you need a little bit more from REO, check this out. Okay. Now I had been getting into more and more into Petra, and I think over the last 2 weeks I've been showing you stuff. I'm going to show you some more stuff because I picked up Beyond Belief, their 1990 album. This one here on the Word Records label, I think was the original Word record label that all this stuff was coming out at the time. So I found an original copy of it, very excited about that. There are reissues of this stuff like the ones that I was getting on Girder Records and things like that. But, you know, they're pricing their stuff at $25 or more, and it's just getting to be too much. So I'm picking up some of the stuff just regular way. Those don't have any bonus tracks anyways on them. They're just cool the way they're done, but I'm okay with just getting a regular one. But anyway, Petra, some Christian rock, good stuff. Now, by that point, John Schlitt had become their lead vocalist, the guy that used to front the 70s band Head East. And that was what drew me into them in the first place, being a fan of Head East, and then they stopped, being a band or whether broke up or whatever it is, but he goes on to front Petra, and I thought, maybe I should give Petra a try and check them out. And that's actually not what got me to finally go do it, but it was what was kicking around in the head. Thing is, I found after getting some of the Petra stuff, I really liked the early 80s stuff from about 82 to 86, when they had the vocalist Greg Voles. And I really liked his vocals actually much more than John Schlitt. Not that I don't like John, it's just that I think this guy was far more expressive. So when either he left the group or was replaced, I don't know the story, he made this solo record. I think this is the debut one he made after leaving the band. He's made other ones as well, but I got this one on Myrrh Records, another Christian rock label. And this sounds very much like the Petra stuff. So I was very much enjoying two Petra things this past week, continuing on. Right now, I don't currently have any more Petra on order. So that might be it for the time being until I find other stuff just randomly as I'm in stores. But very much enjoyed that whole path. I love finding a band and digging into it, and it's a band like Petra that's been around 50 years and having tons and tons of stuff by the band to get into that I didn't necessarily have an opportunity to. I mean, there's very few bands that have been around 50 years that I either have never checked out so that I can't have that epiphany moment and love them, or it's something where I don't necessarily like the band and I may grow into it and get some of it, but never going to collect the whole catalog. This, on the other hand, I'd collect everything that they do, and I will over time. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it, and just always fun to have that happen. So one of the things when I was at Sound Exchange this past weekend filming with Anthony, you're going to see a bunch of videos if you haven't already from that visit. We filmed 3 on that day, so it was a very prolific day of filming. Again, a band that I knew about but never checked out was a group called Talisman. And this is a band that features Jeff Scott Soto as the lead vocalist. And I thought, I know Jeff Scott Soto. He's never been someone that I'm like overly into as far as a vocalist is concerned, but I usually like the bands that he's been part of. It's usually the other members he's with. I mean, he fronted Journey for almost a year, so that, made his stock go up in my book. He was part of Yngwie Malmsteen's band, and he's done a lot of different projects that I have enjoyed, Sons of Apollo most recently. And I actually thought I had something from them, but turns out I had a side project, which they did under the name Human Animal, which was their 3rd album, which I actually have here. Got that one too. So they ended up using that name later on, and I realized, I don't actually own anything from Talisman. I have a side project, which were the members of Talisman. Maybe that's where I got confused with it. So I picked up the debut, and I picked up the 2nd album, Genesis. This is the one that blew my mind. This one, good album. I don't know that I would have immediately reached out and bought that. When I heard this, I immediately thought this stuff is as good as what I liked from the album Marching Out that he did with Yngwie Malmsteen, as sort of power metal, really great stuff. This came out, I think, in like 1990 or maybe a little later. Um, 92, 93, maybe somewhere, I don't know exactly in that area, but early 90s, and just ran under the radar. It came out on a bigger label in Japan, got some European releases, maybe had a US release, I don't know, but really ran under the radar. I never heard of them until years later, finding out about Jeff Scott Soto. And oh, he was in a band called Talisman, okay. You know, but the other guy in this is a guy named, I'm gonna look his name up here, Marcel Jacob. And that name, he plays bass for, I know he was in John Norum's band, and I forget, maybe even Yngwie Malmsteen's band and stuff like that. But he's really good multi-instrumentalist, playing guitar, keyboards, all that sort of stuff on these albums. So I highly recommend these first 3 Talisman albums. Very hard to come by. These are 2012 reissues, so this is the album itself, cover, and then they did this sort of thing to sort of say, oh, this is a reissue, we're putting it out. But I really don't like when they do that. I wish they would just show the artwork, the whole thing. Don't, make it a smaller thing. Why? I don't get that. I don't, other than saying this is a reissue, and yeah, okay, this has 3 or 4 bonus tracks on it, and then this first one here has a whole bunch of bonus tracks, and I guess, if you had both versions, the original and then this reissue, it gives you something a little different. But I don't know, unless you're an LP, that's just, the art is just too small to even see what's going on. But all in all, I just found that I really enjoyed these, and I found out that this album here actually this was the original album, but in Japan, they allowed them to pick and choose what they wanted, and then after that album, I guess, did well, they did a part 2, and other territories pick and chose tracks. So there was enough stuff for 2 albums worth of material. This has 17 tracks on it and is the definitive version of it, and I really liked it. But when I found out there's actually 2 albums, part 1 and part 2, in Japan, and it's not just those 17 songs, it's many more than that in a different running order and everything, I decided to order that and get that into the collection. And just simply because the art is so small, and you know me, I hate digipacks, I went ahead and ordered a Japanese copy of this album because I like it so much. So I'm probably going to have the original Japanese releases of those on the Pony Canyon label. They're coming from Japan. It's going to take them a little bit to get here, but got that. And then I just came across this, and I saw the album cover of this. The group were called Pretty Rough. The album itself, Got the Fire. I flipped it over. I saw those guys, and I said, they gotta rock. Come on. So I just took a chance, and I bought this. And it was a whole $7.98. But what sold me on this before, buying it, is that it is produced by Brian Too Loud McLeod, known for playing with the Canadian band Chilliwack, and then Headpins, and I'm sure he's done some other things. And I always knew him as a producer and songwriter, having worked with, I think he worked with Toronto, and I forget who else he's worked with, but I would always see that name. And later on, I went back and got stuff that he was part of. But when I saw that he was, tied up with this band here, I said, well, they gotta rock, because I've loved everything that he's done. So I assume this is another Canadian band. I could be wrong. 1984 release, just good, straight up rock and roll. And if they are Canadian, I would even go as far as calling it Canadian rock, because it does sound like those other bands. But if they're not, oh well, I don't know. There's so little information on this band out there. I could not find a CD copy of this. So I don't think that this band ever got issued on CD. When I went looking for it, even when I would put in for CD, I would only get LP versions of this pulling up. And I saw that Sounds there. That's a St. Mark's Street, New York City record store that I used to frequent in the early 2000s when I first moved there, and kind of cool to see that sticker, because that record store is long gone at this point. But it's always interesting, how does a New York City record store item make its way out to a deep New Jersey place that is, 45, probably an hour outside of New York City, at the distance away that Wayne, New Jersey is. But, that just is always fascinating to me how things can move and change hands and end up eventually somewhere else. But like me, I bought stuff in New York City. When I lived there, I've moved out of New York City, and that product is now appearing in other stores. So I guess this is not that crazy, but it was cool to me. All right, now I saved this for the very end here because this was an unexpected find and buy, and I don't know anything about the band, but they're on Rock Candy Records, and it is a group called Strider. They're a British group from this debut album, 1973. They only made 2 albums, got the second one as well on Rock Candy Records, 73, 74, these 2 albums. This is called Misunderstood. And I said, okay, Rock Candy Records, I like pretty much anything those guys do, so I want to take note. I looked it up. I was able to stream these. Man, is it good. If you're a fan of blues hard rock like Free, The Faces, Bad Company, you gotta check this band out. The debut album is much more raw than the second album. The production level jumps up tenfold on the second album, but I look at it much the way Aerosmith's debut self-titled album versus the second album. And imagine if Aerosmith only ever made those 2 albums and we never heard what they grew into, right? But the leaps and bounds that jumped from the debut to the second album was amazing. And that's exactly what happens here. I love this album. It's great and all. But this one here, it's like, whoa, where did that band come from? What I also found out is they got an official lead singer. And here the keyboard player sings, which does a great job. Sounds a lot like Steve Marriott singing. But over here, we get someone who's a much more competent singer, very well produced album. And I'm just like, with only 2 albums, where would this band have gone? It's so good, and yet I have never heard of them. These are reissues from this year, 2024. Rock Candy Records just put them out, and like I said, I don't know anything about them. Maybe you guys that are deep into 70s blues rock know about this stuff. And I kind of thought about it the way that I know so many obscure glam metal bands and think, how do people not know who these guys are, right? But okay, yeah, they came around, tail end of the glam metal movement, only made 1, maybe they made a second album, had 1 hit on the radio. That's probably a lot like who this band is. And so they're just that obscure band that came in right at the tail end of British blues, hard rock, and they didn't catch on, and other bands, stayed, and it's sort of the way Free morphed into Bad Company, and, Faces or Small Faces became Faces, and ultimately Rod Stewart had monumental success, but the Faces and Small Faces didn't have overly big success. So some of these groups morphed into things. 2 of the guys in this group would. One of them, the guitar player, went on to play for Rod Stewart, and the drummer, Tony Brock or Terry Brock, I forget his name, went on to join the Babies and had some more success over there. So kind of did, but all in all, man, if out of anything that I grabbed today, I would highly recommend this. Start with the debut. I love good piano rock and roll, not keyboard, not synthesizer, not Moog. Piano rock and roll, man. That's what this is. This stuff, the piano is so right up front. It is awesome. Check it out, Strider, man. Highly recommended out of all of today's stuff, the 12 items. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, man. And I hope, if nothing else, you might have found something like that Strider. I love coming across that stuff, sharing it with you guys. That is the whole point to me doing these episodes. It's not just to say, look, wow, what I got. It's to say, man, I found something totally worth checking out that maybe you didn't want to pick up, like this Ratt that I thought sounded awesome. Finding out that this is the original pressing of the album, something I never would have taken a chance on, but ultimately I did, all the way down to this kind of stuff, right? So all in all, hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Hope you like where these things have been going. And let me know what you guys picked up. What is your cool find? Try to share the love of some of that stuff so that other people reading comments, seeing this video might also get turned on to stuff. All right, everyone, take care. Have a great one, and I'll be talking to you real soon. Bye-bye.